Okay, we're going to start off with this. This is verification from Deputy Taylor. We know why this is important. This is the first piece of evidence that these mental health places were willing to take seriously because a deputy verified it. 3 different deputies at that facility knew about the Natalie Bollinger situation starting when Natalie Bollinger disappeared. Deputy Taylor is one of those 3. Another one is Deputy Fenwald. So the reason this is important is because we're about to get into our psychological evaluations. We got to see in the last video that, TFCC just wanted to play stupid. They wanted to pretend that evidence of threats against me was actually threats against them, and outright lied in court. I didn't have an attorney, so I couldn't defend myself against it. So we're going to start off with Northwest Forensics Institute. I got a hold of them after this situation happened. So I was able to get that to show her, and that was the difference between me being treated like I'm schizophrenic and delusional or her taking it seriously. Now, one thing to consider is that even with all of the stuff that TFCC sent to them, like there's pages of stuff from TFCC, even with all of the slander from TFCC, she still wasn't willing to pretend that I was schizophrenic or delusional after seeing that and looking it up. So she knew I was telling the truth. But that didn't stop the fact that TFCC was allowed to put their slander in here. And by the way, some of this also shows coordination with the people at CARE and the police department and sheriff's department. It says records from Tillamook Family Counseling Center. She wrote, a manager at a restaurant brought Mr. Schwartz to the ED due to suicidal statements and emotional dysregulation. Suicidal statements. Saying that people are trying to push me to commit suicide is not a suicidal statement. It's a statement of being abused. It says, during formal assessment, he presented as agitated with mild persecutional thinking, but with some basis in reality. Due to his level of agitation and refusal to meaningfully participate in assessment, he was escorted out of the ED, and we already went over that, didn't we? It says something, 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 rule out, blah, 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 PTSD, and so on and so forth. So basically, this lady showed up completely disheveled. She didn't know what the hell was going on. I'm surprised she got a license, and I'm surprised she made it. It also says on 422. Now, you notice that skips out a whole bunch of stuff that they put in there. But this isn't my assessor. This isn't the assessor making an assessment here. This is the assessor writing down what it is that TFCC sent her. It says primary concern regarding his fitness was paranoia about law enforcement and various agencies in Tillamook. As he left threatening phone messages over the weekend, the consultation was scheduled to take place telephonically at a later date. And we're going to stop one more time to show this because it really is that important. Obviously, you get to see over here. Sorry, I'm not showing that stuff to you in all of its entirety like I would like to. But the thing is, I need to be able to show this stuff without somebody taking little bits and pieces out and pretending. And that's what's been happening this whole time. So we're going to go back to the very beginning. They pretended that this threat against me was me threatening their worker. That's obviously not the case. These are also more threats against me. They pretended that this threat against me was either a delusion or a threat towards them.
You don't get me confused, man. I ain't no fucking PC. I'll stab you right in your fucking eyeball and show your fucking ass. My fucking heartbeat. Never.
Is that a delusion? Absolutely not. Now let's go further into this, because there's a lot of stuff from TFCC in here. And it all leaves out, every single bit of this leaves out, just like all these other ones. What abuse am I trying to turn in? What am I telling them that they're pretending is a delusion? They aren't able to prove that any of the things that I told them are lies, because they're not. But they were hoping that if they sent this stuff to the assessor, that the assessor was automatically going to pretend that I'm schizophrenic or delusional. And she didn't. She didn't just go along with it just because these people pretended. And that's specifically because of Deputy Taylor verifying the situation was true. The situation with Natalie Bollinger. Let's see. Now, right here, the assessor does put some of her opinion in. It says on 5/10/24, he was not taking medications and spoke about how he was accused of murdering his friend. Although the provider believed this was a delusion, i.e., fixed false beliefs, despite evidence to the contrary. Well, the evidence is not to the contrary, and that's what makes it not a delusion. And that's what the assessor wrote down here in her part. She wrote, it is consistent with the facts of the Natalie Bollinger case from 2018. So their first one of these evaluations, I think this is actually the second one, but this is their second evaluation of the situation that shows that, yes, that's not a delusion, it's the truth. So let's see. It also says, during an assessment 2 days later, he indicated he was targeted since the death of Natalie Bollinger, blamed jail staff for his self-harm behavior. Don't force somebody to hurt themselves to be heard. Neglect is abuse. Ignoring the victims in your facility is abuse. We are still human beings. So, blame jail staff for his self-harm behavior. Not just jail staff, care staff, TFCC staff, the sheriff's department, the police department, the victims' rights advocacy, the DA's office. Like, I went to all of these people. And after the fact, because they didn't want to do their job, what are they going to do? Say he's mentally ill and pretend that I'm delusional. Now, this lady who did the assessment was not willing to call me delusional. She was not willing to call me schizophrenic. And she obviously looked up Natalie Bollinger and verified that it's the truth. And still, TFCC and CARE and the courts wanted to ignore this information and continue pretending that I was schizophrenic and delusional. And just wait till we get to the DA part of this. Let's see. We'll go to the next page because, like I said, there's a lot of it. On this one, it says, let's see. When he did attend, he displayed significant emotional regulation. So I was regulated. I did regulate my emotions. It says, often yelling at the provider for the entirety of the therapy hour. Well, that's not a situation. That was with, what's her name? Nicole. God, she was supposed to help me to turn in the assaults and threats and all that from Natalie Bollinger before Natalie was killed. What was her name? Nicole Perillo, maybe? I'll have to look it up. So that's not it. It's the next page that I'm looking for. And I apologize that there's so many of these. So the next page, like through all this, we get to see that John Holland and TFCC just continue to make false claims. You know, somebody threatens me, they pretend it's a threat against them or a delusion. Um, is this page number 8? Let me see. Sorry, these are all folded up weird, and I couldn't find the copy that wasn't written all over. There's more from TFCC. Let's see. He was diagnosed with PTSD and anxiety and referred to the counseling center. Blah, 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 blah. Mr. Schwartz asked a provider to help him report his past mistreatment. Now, they want to keep pushing that, don't they? It keeps on happening, but every time that I'm abused, they say, oh, well, moving forward, leave it in the past, leave it in the past. And then that person assaults me again, or threatens to kill me again, or threatens to kill my sister or my niece, or makes hundreds of restricted phone calls to me. Like, this isn't stuff that I can stop. Let's see, 5/25/2023, he accused the provider of not fulfilling their duty as a mandatory reporter and expressed dissatisfaction with the agency for not giving him help and information they said they would provide him, and they didn't. He continued to perseverate on his need for an advocate and fear about being taken advantage of. Well, I still don't have an advocate, and I'm still getting taken advantage of. So that's pretty serious right there. Um, let's see. There's also the part where they wanted to uh, claim that I was. Well, you got to see multiple times in this about the Natalie Bollinger thing. It wasn't brought up nearly as much in this one as it was in the next one. And again, the slander from TFCC, even after showing you the evidence that they knew it was slander by that point, they knew that what I was telling them was true by that point, they continued to try to send this crap to the mental health evaluators in the hope that the mental health evaluators would claim that I was schizophrenic or delusional. But again, let's go right back to this piece of evidence with Deputy Taylor, number 277. That's my reality. But that reality doesn't fit your bias. And if it doesn't fit your bias, it must be untrue, right? Well, that's horrible. Here's my other forensic evaluation. This one is from Dr. Pekanu, I believe. Yep. Okay, so this one says the following opinions are offered with reasonable medical certainty. At the time of my evaluation, Mr. Schwartz met DSM-5 TR criteria for the following mental diseases or defects: post-traumatic stress disorder. 2. At the time of my evaluation, Mr. Schwartz was able to understand the nature of the proceedings against him, was able to assist and cooperate with counsel, and participate in his defense. He was able to make relevant decisions autonomously. Imagine that. So it says Mr. Schwartz participated in a 200-minute long interview with me at Oregon State Hospital. Hospital Forensic Evaluation Service on 1st of May 2025. I also evaluated information provided to Oregon State Hospital by the Circuit Court of Tillamook County and had brief discussions with Mr. Schwartz's attorney. Now, what stuff did they send from the courts? Obviously, the police, TFCC, and CARE are going out of their way to allow any actual evidence of abuse in there because that shows wrongdoing on their part. So the stuff that was sent by the courts is that. Does the stuff sent by the courts reflect the reality of the situation? The reality of the A&E thing? The reality of Natalie Bollinger's death? The reality of the fact that I'm actually having to take assaults? So, of course, part of what they said in here is based on what I said. Part of it's based on what Deputy Taylor said, but he also does, just like the other evaluators, they have to write down all of the medical crap that they have in here. If they're sent information from TFCC, they have to write down that they had stuff sent by TFCC. And if TFCC doesn't give them the right information or intentionally withholds information, trying to skew the situation poorly and obviously not in my favor, but it says over and over and over in here that I don't do drugs. They don't have any drugs in my system as of this situation. There's multiple situations here where let's find a page in specific and read to you exactly what it says. Why is there two of those there? Oh, it says sources of information. We should probably start with this. Sources of information on their assessment. 1. Clinical forensic interview with Dr. James Pekanu on 1st of May 2025, 200 minutes duration. Conducted at Oregon State Hospital Forensic Evaluation Services. Number 2. Submitted records from Tillamook County at the time of referral, including A. Tillamook Police Department summary, B. Tillamook Family Counseling records, C. Sean Schwartz notice of self-defense, D. Tillamook County indictment, and CORS, whatever that crap is, legal terms. And then this is the part that I've been showing you guys. Before Deputy Taylor, nobody bothered to look this stuff up. They just assumed it was a delusion. And of course, the places that did realize it was not a delusion were too busy trying to hide the fact that they screwed up. So it says A&E, Murder on the 21st, Season 1, Episode 1, A Deadly Post. This one is TrueCrimeEdition.com, The Strange Murder of Natalie Bollinger. C. Joseph Lopez, charged with first-degree murder in Natalie Bollinger case, Broomfield Enterprise, 14th of February, 2018. Man pleads guilty to murdering Broomfield teen. He told police the victim hired him on Craigslist to kill her. This is all the stuff that I'm treated like I'm schizophrenic for saying, by the way. Views of Mr. Schwartz YouTube videos, various username Sean David. So, of course, he actually looked it up. Imagine that. Something that the courts refused to do, the police refused to do. By the time these people knew that it was going on and not just a delusion, well, they were too busy trying to hide the fact that they screwed up. Here, this entire page nearly is about Natalie Bollinger and what he saw about it. Let's see. Sean described extensive difficulty in his social networks related to the murder of a friend of his in late 2017, Natalie Bollinger. I do want to try to find the stuff from the psychiatric history stuff, because that's pretty important. This stuff was primarily written by the people at TFCC and the courts, and they didn't bother with writing down the truth. They just write down whatever. I'm a homeless person. I don't have friends or family members who are going to look at this shit and say, hey man, let's do something about it. Let's put a stop to this. No, I have people who say, I'm sorry that happened to you. I'm sorry that happened to you. You ever think of moving on? You ever think about moving somewhere else? Yeah. Let's see. It says, given his relative... Oh, wait. Let's read all of this. He said that harassment in the community relative to this from Miss Bollinger's social network had started at around this time and persisted leading up to her death, at which point it was worsened. He also reported that due to the notoriety he has gained related to all of this, he has relocated on multiple occasions, and despite this, he has become the subject of harassment soon after arriving in whatever new place he gets to. Given his relatively recognizable appearance and the notoriety easily observed related to his relationship to Miss Bollinger and her extremely odd death, these claims are not considered to be bizarre or reflective of delusions. Additionally, he maintains a YouTube channel in which some episodes of others targeting him do appear to be demonstrated or at least have some credibility. It says hallucinations or other perceptual disturbances. He denied ever experiencing hallucinations, and there was no evidence of him demonstrating such during the interview. He at no point appeared to be attending to internal stimuli or distracted by things such as auditory hallucinations. He similarly denied any history of visual hallucinations. And then, of course, we have, let's see, we got to go further into this, don't we? Because we're going to the diagnostic impressions and the competency assessment. We already know he says I'm competent. Let's see. Diagnostic impressions, post traumatic stress disorder. Mr. Schwartz described as history dating to childhood of multiple traumatic experiences, including early childhood neglect and abuse of multiple types. He also described vicarious trauma, witnessing others in the foster care system and while being homeless who had suffered violence and abuse in many forms. Additionally, he described the murder of a person known to him who he reported had been a close friend prior to her death. The nature of their relationship is not entirely clear and may be idealized from his perspective. Of course, this is based off of reading the TFCC stuff. However, it's not idealized. Me and Natalie were not boyfriend and girlfriend. We didn't remain friends. We stopped being friends. And there's no idealized about it. It was great. It was a great friendship. When it ended, it sucked. But that doesn't mean that just because we ended a friendship that I deserve to be physically assaulted everywhere I go or treated like I'm delusional when I try to turn in the assault. So, of course, these people who obviously are trying to paint the truth out as a delusion, their words still have an impact. And that's in my permanent records that these people chose to do these things. Systemic abuse isn't a joke. They did the same thing in Colorado and Nebraska. The moment you try to turn in a bad cop, they start pulling the mentally ill thing, trying to insinuate that you're schizophrenic and you need meds and to be put in a facility. So throughout this, let's see. The nature of their relationship is not entirely clear and may be idealized from his perspective. However, corroborating reports of her death do confirm that she was murdered on the date he reported and in the manner he described. Relative to her death, Mr. Schwartz was a person of interest but then ruled out. However, he has gained unwanted notoriety as a result of his connection to the victim, and this, in combination with his unusual interpersonal style and appearance, have caused him to become a target of repeated abuse and harassment in multiple communities, despite efforts to relocate and gain a fresh start away from prior difficulties. He relates that this is due to the infamy of the case within the true crime podcast and social media community. It is noted that in a very brief and cursory search on the internet corroborates both the factual narrative of Mr. Schwartz provides, as well as providing evidence of the negative notoriety he claims relative to these events, which adds weight to his claim about the effects that Miss Bollinger's murder has had on his life. So, that's two mental health, what do you call them? Hold on a second. I want to make sure I get the official title right. Two licensed psychologists and certified forensic evaluators. Two of them verified. After looking at this, they decided to chance it and take a look instead of just assuming schizophrenia and delusions. Now, because I've been trying to turn in the police and the sheriff's department since 2022, the police and the sheriff's department obviously will do whatever it takes to prevent that. Since I went to TFCC and CARE to try to turn in the abuse, well, obviously they're going to do everything they can to prevent that. The help that I need is a mandatory reporter who's going to do their job and take it seriously. You know, this stuff right here, there's so many of these. He states outright in here that I am not schizophrenic, that I am not delusional, that I do have PTSD. Here's a good one right here. It's other diagnostic considerations. Um, let's see. It is possible that in prior presentation, when he has had more acute distress, a perception of his presentation is, that's right, a perception of his presentation as inconsistent with a thought disorder would be a relatively easy conclusion. However, given his PTSD diagnosis and lack of these other signs of a thought disorder, it is my opinion that a thought disorder is effectively ruled out. Now, what is a thought disorder? That would be schizophrenia or delusional disorder, for example. He also considered a diagnosis of a mood disorder. Let's see, let's get to the important part. Inquiry of mood symptoms with him did confirm the presence of many symptoms of a chronic depressed mood, especially after Miss Bollinger's death and with the subsequent harassment Mr. Schwartz reports experiencing. And he also, you got to hear it earlier, he did actually verify some of that. Let's see. He also reported mood symptoms such as feelings of helplessness and hopelessness, though notably not worthlessness. Chronic thoughts that he wished to be dead, low libido, and poor sleep. Well, I'm not sexually interested. I never was. That's one of the things it's weird to try to explain to somebody who is sexually active or interested in sex. Let's see. It says, when asked to describe his mood and self-perception in general, Mr. Schwartz described himself as, I'm a funny fucker, and said that he feels his mood is most dependent on the situation he is in or the people he is with. Many specific aspects of mood symptoms he reported are attributable to his PTSD rather than a separate mood disorder. And with the chronic presence of specific and easily identifiable stressors. That's right, easily identifiable stressors that relate directly to mood symptoms. The appropriate diagnosis would be adjustment disorder if one were to be given. However, it is my opinion that the mood symptoms he reports are attributable to post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay? It also talks about me having Tourette's right here. There's, like I said, a lot in here. And we haven't even gotten into the situation with the forensic evaluator who also is a autism specialist. So they tried to keep her out of court and all of her information out of court because if they hadn't, it wouldn't have been nearly as easy for the district attorney to literally just push the whole time that these were all delusions that I was making up, that all of the calls that I made were delusions. You get to see when I call the cops about this abuse, you get to see in my paperwork how cops repeatedly try to insinuate that these were calls for nothing, that I was just harassing the cops for no reason, that I was just having a delusion, and oh my God. So the thing is, yeah, I'm reading this stuff to you, and some of it I can actually show you because I know it's on the page and I know it's associated with it. I know it doesn't have any minors' names on it or anything like that. But yeah, this guy right here, Dr. James Paycanu, he went through, he fucked up in his assessment a lot because he put too much stock into what the people at TFCC were saying because, well, to him, they're the mental health people from Tillamook. But to me, these are the people who have gone out of their way to prevent the things that he verified from being shown in court. The things that Dr. Pekanu saw. Legally, as a mandatory reporter, he has to turn it in, but he was there to do an assessment. And do these assessments, do any of them say that I'm schizophrenic or delusional? No, not a single one of them. The closest that they've been able to get is in the state of Colorado. A police officer told the staff at Longmont Hospital that I was schizophrenic. They did write the word schizophrenic down, but the doctor wrote down very specifically that she had not observed anything whatsoever that would lead her to believe that I was schizophrenic. It wasn't about protecting me. It wasn't about protecting me from hurting myself or hurting others. It was about making sure that my voice wasn't heard and that my evidence wasn't seen. And the only thing that stopped that mentality, this right here, Deputy Taylor, over and over and over again, Deputy Taylor. If Deputy Taylor had not confirmed that the Natalie Bollinger situation was true and it was on A&E, well, all of these assessments would be rubber stamps for TFCC. All of these mental health evaluations would have been just me getting railroaded and assumed to be delusional. Now, with all of this evidence that they're not delusions, it's time somebody did their job. Unfortunately, everybody in this town who is a mandated reporter, or nearly all of them, have taken part in the situation of treating me like I'm delusional or even abusing me for trying to turn in their coworkers or their friends. That's not what your position of power is for. You're supposed to protect us, not take advantage of us.